Oh, hi there. I'm Kat. Thank you for joining me for Chat with Kat. We're going on a journey and having conversations with people from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. And during this journey, we're going to probably laugh and smile. We'll have moments of compassion and cry. We may be angry or feel confronted, and we may be amazed and just need to ponder. So, whatever the emotion is that comes up, let's take a moment to breathe and ask ourselves why we're feeling this. And also, let's ask, what can I learn from this? So go ahead and like, share, subscribe to this, and make sure that your friends and family and colleagues and anyone you feel could get something from this gets to see this. So let's get on with our journey with Chat with Kat.
All right. Well, hi, Keith. It's so good to see you. Thanks for joining me with Chat with Kat tonight.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And so we do know each other through the Self-Perfected group and the Techno Tutor group. And I know a lot of people may be joining us here who don't really know who you are. So maybe just share a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So my name's Keith Wainschel. I grew up on the East Coast in New Jersey, United States. I know you were originally from Canada, is that right?
Yeah.
And now you're in South America?
Yeah, I'm living in Mexico now.
Yeah. It's cool. I forget that like we're a multinational group. So I grew up in the United States on the East Coast, right outside of New York City. And I was there until I was about 30 years old, moved to the West Coast. So now I'm in California. Spent about 15 years or so in the Bay Area, like in San Francisco. And then when Maya and I got together, got married, had a son, our son Ben. Maya's my wife, obviously. We decided to move out of San Francisco and move to Oakland. And then from there, when Ben was about 4 or 5, we decided that Oakland was not looking good. It was getting more and more dangerous, and we didn't want not only like that environment for Ben growing up, but we wanted to offer him a lot more room for himself and a lot more of a life with purpose. So we bought a property about 5 acres northeast of Sacramento, and that's where we are now. And now we have a whole bunch of farm animals and a garden and an orchard and a lot of space for him to run around and play. And that's kind of where we are now. So that's just kind of like the logistical background for me.
Yeah.
But really, I think the more like really relevant thing is, or I don't know how to say it, but I find to be more important is when I was in college, my dad, I would talk to my dad for hours. Like I was in my freshman year of college. It was my first time being away from my parents for a long, like extended period of time. And I was in architecture school. That's my background as an architect. And I was learning a whole bunch of stuff, but I was also dealing with like being away from home. I was like a whole new social group, like all of the things. And I would talk to my dad for long periods of time. And there was one conversation that I had with him where he said, I started doing this thing, like going to these classes, and I think you might really like it because a lot of the conversations that we have seem to go towards a lot of the ideas that are covered in these classes. And what he was talking about is something called landmark education, which I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
I've done a lot of courses with them.
Okay, yeah, and I have too at this point. But he really, like, the way that Landmark kind of frames their education is as an ontological exploration, like the nature of being. So a lot of the questions that I was talking to my dad about about just kind of life and purpose, and like, what am I trying to do in my life and create, and the value of relationships and communication and all of that stuff. And so he really kind of steered me towards that. And so the first long break that I had back from school, I took their first course, the Landmark Forum, and learned a lot about myself, not just out of the framework of their educational model, but just about like how I had kind of created my psyche, like my character. And so over the next like 10 years beyond that, I participated in all kinds of different, like pretty much anything that Landmark had to offer. I did it, including becoming an introduction leader and leading introductions and training people and doing all of that kind of stuff. And like one of the really fun things that they did during the introduction leaders training is they had people go up on stage and recite this poem. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's like they want you to be 10 times more excited than you would normally be. Most people are terrified to be up in front of people to begin with. So to be like 10 times more excited, and like they want you like running around on the stage, jumping, screaming, like, and so that was, doing something like that definitely broke, the boundaries of what I thought I could actually do to like speak in front of a group of people. So there was like some really cool experiences in doing those courses. But it wasn't, after a while, I found that there was something missing in what I was learning at Landmark. And there was, I don't know if I've ever really like put my finger on it, but there was something about how they talked about relationships, talked about sex, like it was like very superficial in my opinion. And I wanted more of that. And so I actually found a couple that was really like studying this, like as adults, like studying relationships, sex, like in detail. And so I wanted to study that too. So it was one of the things that had me move out to the West Coast, because that's where they lived. I met them at a wedding. A friend of mine got married in Florida. I traveled down there and met them at this wedding, and was just very curious about what they were doing. So I went out and did a course with them, and not because they were there, but it just happened to work out well that I really liked San Francisco, and so I decided to move out there. And this is like around, I don't know, a couple of years after living in San Francisco is when it was like a good 6 years later that I ended up meeting Maya. But the reason I'm like, again, it's kind of like logistics. Like I did this and I did this course and all this, but really like what the picture I kind of want to paint is that I've been interested in like introspective, big life questions, energetic questions, sex questions, like physical reality, like I've been interested in this stuff for a long time. And I would, I would venture to guess that like most people actually are. But I really when I found out that there were people that were actually studying this stuff and like really trying to get to the core of what's going on in our world and our, like what are we made of and like why do we act the way that we act and communicate the way we do? I was like, whoa, that's cool. So like I just like went for it. And I've been doing that for a long time. So, when I met Maya, she had been studying essentially like what the principles of the self-perfected group, which is comes from a group called Destiny that started in South Africa and she had been there and been studying these principles and the self-forgiveness process and things like that. And then when she came to the United States, I met her after about 6 months that she was here. And she told me about it, and I was like, cool, you know, you got your thing and I got my thing, and, you know, like, and I was curious about it, you know, but I never like really asked a lot of questions. And I can remember like I listened to like a recording, you know, about some of the stuff that she was learning. And I was like, I don't get it. Like, I don't like, who is this woman talking? And she, you know, she seems to like be talking in circles. Like she's saying the same thing over and over again. Like, what are you getting out of this? And like, she would explain it to me. And then I remember there was one point in particular where she asked me, or I was getting like really angry about something. I don't remember what it was. And she was like, well, you know, and she was challenging me and asking me, you know, well, can you let go of the anger? You know, like, do you have to hold on to it so tightly? And I said, no, like, I can't, like, I don't want to. I said, you know, like, I've suppressed all of this my whole life. So I don't want to like now suppress it more, you know? And she was like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Like actually letting it go. Like, would you be willing to like look at how you might be able to do that? And I was just like, no, you know, and she talked to me in that same conversation. She talked to me about responsibility. And I said, well, like I am being responsible. Like you did this thing, you said this thing, I got angry, and I'm sharing that I got angry because you did this thing. She's like, no, that's not what I mean by responsibility. And I was like, well, that sounds like responsibility. I'm doing the responsible thing. I'm sharing with you. I'm being honest. Like I'm angry. She's like, no, there's more to it. And I'm like, I don't get it. So, you know, she was sharing a lot of stuff with me early on, and I just was not processing what she was talking about. And it wasn't until we had Ben, and there were some things that started coming up with Ben that I was like, I don't know how to resolve this. That she said, you know, we haven't really engaged with this group that I've been a part of, but I really think that they could help us with some of the questions that we have, that you have. And, you know, specifically, there's a parenting group. And, you know, we can ask questions, you know, specifically about parenting and probably get some answers. And I was like, okay, you know, like I'm not sure what else to do. So let's do that. So that was really like the start for me in engaging with the self-perfected group and the whole process, using TechnoTutor and, you know, like, which is a technology that we use with Ben, we use ourselves. And but I'm finding now that all of my searching and all of the questions that I asked, and it was really helpful. Like I don't knock any of that. Like it was, and I turned back to a lot of that stuff and reframe it, reinterpret things. I can see that there's still a lot of value in the things that I learned during all of that. But a lot of it has been recontextualized inside of this new lens of, you know, basically the self-perfected principles and the self-forgiveness process. And, you know, the idea of like responsibility has totally shifted for me and what that actually looks like. And like a really simple example of that is I can remember like early in the process of engaging with this, Maya, she challenged me again. I don't remember if it was me getting upset about something or it might have been like something at work or something. I don't remember. But she brought up this point of responsibility again. And I remember talking to somebody in the group and like, I just don't get this. And they made this really simple statement. They're like, okay, well, like, are you responsible for how your relationship with Maya goes? And I was like, I mean, I guess so. And he was like, okay, well, like, is there any part of the relationship that you're asking Maya to take care of? And I was like, I mean, yeah, I guess, like, I feel like there should be some reciprocation, you know, like, or some responsibility on her part.
Mhm.
And he said, well, consider that however much there is of you putting that expectation on her, that's the amount that you're relinquishing your responsibility, that you're leaving it to chance, essentially. And you're not like actually stepping fully into having the kind of relationship that you want to have. And it's funny, like I just kind of got chills, and it was like, whoa, okay, like that's another level of responsibility. It's like that's like taking responsibility for all of it, like every aspect of it, like every part that I contribute. Like she might say something or whatever, but like if I have a reaction to it, it's like, okay, even the reaction is something that like I can actually take responsibility for. Like, why am I having a reaction here? Instead of like being like, oh, you did this thing and that's why I'm upset. It's like, no, actually, there's something that happened before that. And can I take responsibility for that too? And what is it that I actually like really want to create? And once I saw, it's like, whoa, like I have a lot more authority here, like a lot more power to create what it is that I want. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm actually giving a lot of that power, that ability away. And do I actually want to do that? And the answer was no. Like the answer is still no. But it was just like a whole nother level of, responsibility. So anyway, like I'm kind of like, sharing different things, but like you're asking, who am I? And like I think that all of this stuff is really important. Like if I were to like just meet somebody and somebody asked me that question, like if they have the patience like you do to listen to the whole thing, that's what I'd want to say. And these are the kinds of things that I'm really interested in. Like I'm really interested in these kinds of questions, like how do we communicate with each other? What are the reactions that we have? How does our mind work? Like all of that kind of stuff. And like even down to like what are the energetic exchanges that happen between human beings, and what is that about? And like it's like that kind of stuff is really fascinating to me.
Wow. Thank you for going so deep into like actually saying who you are, as opposed to like, oh, I'm just, I'm married and have a son and da da da. Like I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in when someone asks who you are, they're just like, well, what is the character type that I am? Right. I guess, right?
Yeah.
So
I appreciate the question.
So now that you've gone through all these different processes and learning and discovering and figuring out some of these questions, or at least getting better answers to the questions than you had before, what is it that's really driving you now to keep moving forward with these things?
That's a great question. So a little backstory on that is when I was really young, I actually have a memory of being like 4 or 5 years old and sitting in my room playing with blocks or Legos or something like that, and stopping playing or doing whatever I was doing and kind of like looking up and thinking, you know what, I really want to be an architect. Like that's what I want to do with my life. I want to be an architect. And I don't know how I even knew what that was at that age. I would imagine because probably my grandfather, who was he was a really interesting guy. He lived in Germany, came to the United States in the 30s, owned his own, like he started as a dishwasher, not speaking any English, and then became a successful business owner, ran plastic molding, plastic injection factories, and became a painter in his retirement, was a master chess player. And I remember going to his house, and he had because he was a painter, he had a drafting table. And I don't know if like you've ever seen these things, but you know what a parallel bar is? It's basically like, for anybody watching, it's like, you've got a big board, and literally there's a bar that's on wire on the board, and as you move it, it will move parallel to its previous position. So it's always moving on the page in a parallel, perpendicular way. And so he used it to like lay out his paintings. And I remember seeing that and thinking that's really interesting. And I would imagine I probably asked him some question about it or something, and he told me engineers and architects, they use this, or he said, you play with blocks and you're going to be an architect or whatever. And anyway, he was a pretty influential person in my life. But up until I really started to engage with this group, I figured that architecture was my life's path, one way or another. And I had started to become a little disillusioned in my career, and felt like, I don't know that I want to be working on the projects that I'm working on. I don't know if this is really achieving my goals. Like, one of the reasons that I moved out to San Francisco is that I really liked what people in that field were doing, because there was a lot of focus on sustainable technology. I was really interested in that. And it felt like this was like the knife's edge in the United States, at least, for where that kind of development was happening. And so I wanted to get into that. I worked for a firm that was doing that kind of stuff. And then in 2009, when the economy collapsed, I lost that job and started working for another firm that was interested in it, but it wasn't integrated the same way. But that wasn't really the thing that was disillusioning me. It was like the projects that we were doing, the clients that we had. I just felt like I was starting to kind of stagnate and not really achieve all the things that I really wanted to be doing. And I wasn't sure that architecture was actually going to achieve the goals. Like, so many of our clients, we'd offer up these opportunities to like do the sustainable tech this way or that way, and they'd say, no, we can't afford it. And it just wouldn't happen. And that kept happening. And I was like, I remember talking to this guy he was on this board, it was like a national board where they were developing the guidelines and the rules for the kind of sustainable goals that they wanted to achieve, like across the entire industry. And he said, like, we're developing these rules, but I don't even feel like it's going to make a difference at all. Because if people aren't willing to spend the money on this stuff, then what are we doing? How is this ever going to turn the tide? Like, no pun intended, but it's like, how is this ever going to work? And I started thinking, like, maybe I'm on the wrong side of the table. Like, maybe I should be on the contractor side, or maybe I should be on the owner side, like where I'm like making the decisions about money and investment. And then around the same time, like, this is after the collapse now, the economic collapse. There was this movie, The Big Short, that came out. And I went and I watched that. And I remember, like, the end of the movie, like the punchline, spoiler alert, but like the punchline that, they tell the story of like, and all the, shit hit the fan, and like all the bankers got arrested, and they were, put on trial, and they were like charged all these like, what's the word? Like, not taxes, but like, they were forced to pay back, the American public, like all this money and everything like that. And then they were like, just kidding. Nobody went to prison. One guy went to prison, and he had very little to do with anything that happened. And I remember like hearing that and thinking, holy shit, like, our system is so fucked up. Like, how could all of this negligence and fraud and everything just be swept under the rug and bailed out by the US government? Like I trusted these people, and how could I trust them? I don't. Like, I just like, and our whole economy is run by this group. Like, oh my God, like, we are all totally fucked. So it totally shocked me. So, like, kind of in combination with this idea that, like, I don't have a lot of control over this technology getting adopted. So if I'm trying to make a difference and, you know, like save the world from the climate change collapse that's happening, I'm not going to do it in architecture. And if we're seriously running out of time, you know, architecture is a very slow process. You know, buildings take like, you know, 4 or 5 years, especially big projects to, but anyway, it's kind of like, you know, if time really is running out, I'm not in the right position to really make a difference, to make a dent even in what, you know, apparently we're all trying to accomplish. And then, you know, to then see what happened with the economic collapse and how it was basically just swept under the rug. It was like, whoa, you know, if like, I don't trust that they have our best interests at heart. And now, like, I don't trust that anybody's really doing anything about apparently like this big climate disaster that we're facing. What am I doing? You know, like how we're all screwed, and I seemingly can't do anything about it. And then when I started engaging with this group, and like, you know, with the self-perfected group, I can't remember exactly what, I think it was like right after, at the end of COVID, or like maybe it was like even a couple months in to COVID, like 2020. And I can't remember exactly when Trump was elected the first term. Was it 20? No, he was already.
It was after COVID had already started.
Yeah, because he was the first responder, basically. So, and then by 2020, yeah, because 2020 is when Biden was elected. And then at the end of the year. And then 24 is when Trump was elected. Yeah. So, but I remember like during the election cycle when Trump won, I was devastated. Like my friends and I, like I grew up as a very liberal person living in San Francisco. That's, you know, the total norm. You know, essentially the entire city is liberal. And I remember, you know, having a party and Stephen Colbert's on the TV and just like, what just happened, you know? And I remember being totally on board with that. And then by the time the pandemic happened and I had started kind of seeing behind the curtain a little bit, some of my own research, but then also things that I was learning in this community, I was like, you know what? Like, Obama was the one that bailed out the banks. He was also the one that bailed out the car industry. Airlines got bailed out. Like, and everyone's like up in arms about climate change and all this stuff. But like, do I really understand what's going on? And I started like, you know, after The Big Short, I really did a deep dive into finance because I was like, I don't understand this stuff at all. And I really need to. And I was, again, just disillusioned. And so I wanted to find a path. And the kind of like, I mean, the question you're asking, it's a big question. So like, I know I'm going on and on, but like, all of this stuff is relevant to me because it was all the places where I felt like I want to make a difference. Like I want to do something impactful, but I don't seem to have enough skin in the game or authority to be able to do anything about it. But, when I started engaging with the self-perfected group, there's an idea, a principle about what is best for all. What is best for all for the world? What is best for each and every one of us? And it's an idea about equality, and not just like we should treat everybody equal, but what are we actually equal to? You know, like if we behave in a particular way, if we're abusive in some way, or we're not taking responsibility in some way or something like that, then what are we allowing ourselves to be equal to? And so I really like took that idea to heart and started exploring, like, what does that really mean? And like, if we were to create a world that's best for all, like, I feel like I've been kind of wanting to do that, like in all of my pursuits and stuff. But like, how do you do that? Like, how do you stand up and like start, like, how can anybody, like any random person, stand up and say, yeah, like, I'm going to create a world that's best for all. That's what I'm doing. I'm like, who are you? You know, like, how could you possibly have enough power or authority to do that? But in asking, and I really asked, like, not like flippantly, but like I really wanted to know, like, how do you do that? And the really simple answer, and the one that I didn't want to hear, is that you do that by starting with yourself, by really like going through the process of understanding who you are. And if you're willing to take responsibility for that, you created who you are, even as a little baby, as a child growing up, that all the things that you were imprinted with, you know, like we say that like our largest, you know, we're a product of our environment, is something that people say, right? So our parents influence us clearly, our siblings influence us, our teachers influence us, our relatives influence us, the people around us, our closest friends, and, you know, like, and beyond, where, you know, like, it's in front of the television, you watch the news, that influences you, right? So there's all these kind of pressures and things that mold us, but ultimately we actually choose to be molded. We choose, we accept and allow all of that, and then we are the ones that program ourselves to behave however that is. So like, I might look up to my father and I can see him like, wow, he's really like charismatic, and like he did a bunch of like singing and acting, and like he played the piano, and I was like, wow, that's so cool that he does that. And I can look up to him, and you know, I want to be like that. I want to like be charismatic and outgoing, and, you know, like willing to sing and like do all this stuff. And so that was something within me, like a very simple example, but like where I said, I want to be like that. And I, you know, so I accepted that as part of who I wanted to be and who I am. And we do that with every single thing. And if we don't understand all of those inner workings of how we put ourselves together in that way, well, let me say it a different way. Not if we don't, but if we want to actually create a world that's best for all, kind of like, you know, I want to create the best relationship with my wife. And so if there's any aspect of that, again, where like I'm not taking responsibility, then that's where I'm giving that authority away. I'm giving that power away. So it's the same thing with the world. And that's what I found, is that, you know, like, if this works at scale. So, you know, like, if you want to create a world that's best, if there's any part where you're like, well, I just can't do that, then you've given that opportunity away. So, and it's not to say that like, well, I'm a millionaire, like I'm just claiming that I'm a millionaire and like I'm gonna, you know, go into the, like, no, but the opportunity to do that is there. Like, you can actually say, I'm going to do whatever it takes, whatever hard work it takes to sort myself out and to understand myself. You know, like, if somebody wants to start a business and they've never done that before, or like really anything like that they've never done before, you're going to face challenges. You're going to face obstacles. Like, it's just like, you know, like, I mean, what's something for you that like you've had to like take on newly that you had like never done before? And
I mean, there's been so many things, Keith. I mean, like, well, let's just put it this way. I mean, even as a project manager, and that's what I did, was solve problems and figure out, you know, for every problem, there's about 5 solutions, right? You just got to find them. But even moving down to Mexico, I mean, I did it, and I did it successfully, but could I have done it better? Oh yes, I could have. And there were certainly things I went down here and went, oh, I mean, it worked, but clearly not the most effective way of doing it or most efficient way, or, I mean, that's just and that's a big thing. Like, for me, it's like, oh, I picked up and moved, and yeah, there was about 2 months before I was left, but that's still a short time, right? To get all your documents in place, get all your visas, get a place to live. I mean, that's a really fast time to move across to another country. Never mind, like if you were trying to move across your city, right? So, so that's probably one thing. It's just, but learning, like, when you move too, is also learning. I came down with the intent to learn the culture and learn the people and learn the language, right? So have I mastered any of those yet? No, I'm still working on it. I'm 4.5 years in and I'm still working on it. But do I know more now than I did when I moved here? Yes.
Right.
But every day it's
you have like possibly learned more if you stayed in Canada and like we're still sorting it out or trying to figure something out. I mean, you probably learned like, 100 times more by actually being there and making the move.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, every day it's a learning, right? Like it's every single day. I mean, I'm actively learning the language, doing, like I'm doing Duolingo every day. And I'm speaking with people, and I go out and I actually make the effort to speak to people. And like, actually my friend I'm dog sitting for right now, she's Mexican American, right? But she speaks Spanish fluently. And so we were out for dinner last night, and I would say about 90 some odd % of our conversation was in Spanish. And then I would say, oh, I forgot the word. I don't know this word. And then I would say it in English, or I'd say a phrase in English, and then we'd go back to the Spanish. So, but.
And how long have you been there?
4.5 years.
Okay. That's so cool.
But I'm not, I mean, I would say I'm above basic, but I'm certainly I'm not at the level to go do my passport, and my citizenship test yet. So.
Oh, no. Well, anyway, yeah, that's super interesting. That's so cool that you did that you just dove in and you took that on and you did it, and you did it fast. And yeah, I mean, so it's like, and I'm sure that, I would imagine that like there were points where you're like, wow, like I have no idea how to handle whatever this hurdle is.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There were many moments in the last 4.5 years where I went, I don't know.
Yeah. So so I feel like it reminds me of something from the movie Fight Club. And there's like this quote from the movie, like, how much do you know about yourself if you've never been in a fight? And it's kind of like that with trying new things. It's like, how much do you know about yourself if you haven't failed? Like if you haven't confronted obstacles and stuff like that. And how much do you actually learn about yourself when you do, and whether or not you succeed or not, you're still going to learn a ton about yourself doing that. So I think where I was kind of going with all this is that, like, when you consider, the large task of changing the world, or like making the world one that's like best for all, what I found is that you can actually do that, but you start with yourself. So, like, how can you, I think another like analogy is, I've been thinking about this, is that when somebody participates in like AA or like a 12-step program or something like that, there's a support structure there where people that say that they're addicts and like, they're on the, I can't remember exactly how they phrase it, but like on the path to recovery or what have you. Those are the people that are supporting other people in the program. So there's like a seniority to people that have been walking that path longer. And then those are the ones that can support the ones before that, but they have to have walked that path. So it's similar. Like if, you're, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm not promoting that at all. Like there's a lot of stuff in there that I would challenge, but but still, the idea that like if you haven't walked the path, how can you ask somebody else to do it? And how would you, like, even if they could, how would you know whether or not they did it effectively or not?
Right.
How would you know that like you actually resolve something that was best for yourself, for the world at large? Like you actually have to walk the walk yourself first, and deal with all of your own objections and doubts and like whatever, like the places where you give away your responsibility, or you still are emotional reacting, or like I'm getting frustrated or angry about stuff, or what, like, and then like not moving forward because I'm scared, or I think fear is a huge thing that people have to confront. That is something that's like very ingrained, like, and again, like we've kind of done that to ourselves, but like if you can't confront that stuff, then how can you possibly expect anybody else to do it? And they might, but again, like, how are you going to know whether or not that's moving in the direction of what's best? And so another kind of ring outside of our own personal self, I think, is we've got like our own mind to deal with, our own character, personality, all that stuff to deal with. But if you look at the next kind of rung outside of that, the next concentric circle is our immediate relationships. And that could be our, our partner, significant other, our immediate family or close family, or close friends, things like that. And for me, it's Maya. And then the next is with Ben. And Ben is like, he's really like that's my son. He's really right there with Maya. Like there's not much distinguishing, but Maya and I obviously have a very different relationship than Ben and I do.
Right.
But then, like outside of that, there's like our families, and then our friends, and then our community, and then, the people literally that are here locally around us. And then it just continues to go out from there. And so you can address the level of responsibility that you're willing to take on at any level within that. But you have to be willing to take responsibility for all of that. Like at some level, if you ever expect to be able to move the world, but also understanding that all of those things, like this concept of equality, or like equal and one, like what does that mean? That principle. All of those rungs, or all of those concentric circles, or whatever, they're all equivalent. Like there isn't actually one that's greater than another, and there isn't one that's necessarily going to have a greater impact than another either. So, like if I can't have a reasonable conversation with Maya without getting upset about something or whatever, then it's the same as if, like I'm a manager I'm an associate in the firm that I work with. And, like if I'm having a similar kind of challenge, or like I can't resolve, some kind of conflict with a client or a contractor or whatever, it's the same. It's the same point that I'm not moving through or able to resolve for myself. And if I can resolve it at any scale, then I can resolve it at all of them.
Right.
And so there really is, like, we really can take responsibility for creating a world that's best for everybody. But it has to start, or we have to be willing at least to address it at any level. Like the really big levels, like now you can also talk about like, do you have the capacity to even like handle stuff at that scale? There's so much stuff coming at you, like, like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that I'm set up for that now, but it's kind of like moving to a foreign country. It's like, are you willing to do what it takes
Mm-hmm.
to come through that and
Yeah.
create the kind of experience that you want for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are, then you commit to yourself to it and you go. And you
Mm-hmm.
deal with whatever comes up as it comes up. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really like, how good do you want it to be? And then how willing are you to fight for that, and do whatever it takes to have that? Because that's kind of like, what else are we doing here?
Right.
Like, wouldn't we all, if we had the choice, just want the best?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I would.
Yeah.
So, when you ask about, purpose, or like, what is my life about, or that's really what I see, like in the, and in the most immediate, I don't know, experience, I guess, or like the relationship that I have with Maya and Ben, and the fact that Ben is 7. And so there's still a huge reliance on us, to care for him and raise him in the best way. And so like, he's still, and will be, like, very influenced by us. And like, if we care about his future and even our future, like, we really want to do whatever it takes to be the best parents to him, because I'm very clear that if I am serious about creating a world that's best, it starts with him, both like creating a world around him that is best, but also like him himself, like who he is. And like, as I said, like, he's doing that, whether as conscious as he is, or aware of that, as he is not, he is doing it. And so, like, can we support him in the best way that we possibly can, so he can create the best version of himself that can be, for himself, for his life, for this world. So that's like the very immediate thing that I can put a ton of it, and we do put a ton of attention on, in creating a world that's best.
Wow.
Well, I'm just taking it all in, because you've said a lot that's very deep, and I'm just like, wow, I feel like it's like I got to grab it all right now.
Well, thankfully you can like go back and listen to the recording.
Oh yeah, it's okay. So can everyone else. They can go back and watch this over and over again, right? And catch every little moment. So, man, so much there. But one thing, I mean, really struck me is that well, actually, maybe two things. One, you were saying, like, can you really know yourself if you haven't fought yourself, right? Or had that fight. But then you're also talking about having, Ben creating his best self, and creating the best environment for him. And it just kind of almost strikes me where it's like, but he's going to have a lot of challenges and a lot of things to go through in order for him to be his best self. And then that brings us back to being like fighting yourself to know yourself, right? So it almost seems like, and maybe I'm just too much into this right now, but I'm like, wanting to create the best world for him, wanting to create the best environment for him, wanting to be the best parents, which you're on the path of doing. I mean, obviously, is everyone perfect? No. But can we get better? Absolutely, right? So while you're on this path right now, it's just like, how much is he actually taking on now that he's able to actually go through for himself and know himself? And I don't know if there's an answer. So.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that there is an answer, because I don't know how to quantify that, but I do know that he's very engaged in these kinds of conversations, and he's a very, I mean, not to define him, but he's very inquisitive, kind of like, I kind of want to say by design, but it's just like Maya and I have these conversations. And he's around, and he's a part of the conversations. And so he's interested in it too. He's interested in understanding like what are the big forces in this world that are moving, the moving parts and pieces of it? How does that impact him? Who is he in all of that? Who is he going to be in this world? What kind of family does he want to have? What kind of kids does he want to have? You know, like those kinds of questions, those are the kinds of things that we will talk about, even if it's just Maya and I talking about our lives and what we're creating. It allows him to ask those types of questions. And there was a time we were living in Oakland. We were sitting at the dinner table, and Ben, I don't remember what we were talking about, but he stops the conversation, like everybody's conversation. He's like, "Wait a minute, guys, hold on. I just had this thought, and like I can't like understand it." I'm like, okay. And he's like 4 years old, 5 years old. He speaks very clearly. And it's funny, like this is kind of a tangent, but like from when he was like very little, we've been reading stories and books and stuff to him since he was like really little. And he would ask us to read the same thing over and over again. And he wasn't reading the words at that time, but he would remember the stories. And so if we miss a word or an expression, he would stop us and correct us.
Oh,
and
wow.
He was right. Like, I don't remember a time when he stopped us and corrected us when he was not right about what the next word was in the story. Like, that's like, he was like totally on top of it. And like grammatically, even like at a very young age, he would like correct our grammar, like with past tense and stuff like that. So anyway, so like we're sitting at the dinner table, he stops us. So he's very articulate and he's like, "Guys, hold on a second. How do babies learn? Like, how do they learn anything? Because they don't have language. Like they don't have words. But like we're teaching them in words. So like, or like talking to them, like how do they ever like learn words if they don't have words? Like how do they learn anything? Like how do they repeat words or learn to talk or like I'm just like, I can't get my mind around it. And so we like talk about it a little bit and he's like, no, like he's like, I just can't understand it. And it was really cool because he's, in one sense, he's trying to understand it, but in another, he's blown away by the fact that like he can't actually answer the question for himself. And the experience of like not being able to answer the question left him like mind blown, you know, like in that, like you've had that experience, it is kind of exhilarating in a way, you know, like where you're like, whoa, I never thought about things like that, you know. So he kind of had that rush, you know, like of this like, holy crap, like I actually don't know, like I can't figure this out. But he was very curious about it. And you know, that kind of curiosity that he has, like I have no doubt that when it comes to trying to resolve a point within himself, or you know, like if he's challenged by something or he's like fighting with himself, and I don't mean like, you know, that kind of that quote from Fight Club. I don't mean necessarily with yourself that you're like in a fight, you know, like
right, yeah.
You know, but I mean, certainly we're going to face challenges within ourselves or things that we incorporated that were like, how did that get there? Or like, why am I doing that? That's a terrible idea, you know?
Right.
And we're going to have to confront all that stuff. Or, you know, like, why am I not facing that thing that I'm afraid of? And it's like, well, because you're afraid of it. But okay, but can you move through that? And can you support yourself in doing that? You know, I have no doubt that he's going to be able to do that. That he's learning from us, he's learning from our friends and people in this community, like how he can actually do that for himself. And a large part of our parenting is acknowledging, you know, that there are these things that we're going to have to contend with and he's going to have to contend with. And so let's make sure that we have the best tools possible to handle stuff when it comes up. And we have the best ability possible. You know, like if we're just reacting in like fear or anger or whatever, because we're challenged by something, whether it's somebody else or something within ourselves. It's like, if we just collapse, it's like, how effective are we going to be? Not very effective. Or if we have to turn to something, to, drugs and alcohol, or, not to like put down therapy or things like that. But it's like, if we don't have the tools to be able to question things ourselves and like take them on ourselves and really like understand where we can take full responsibility for something, at some point, we'll have given that, again, kind of that responsibility or authority away. And so like a large part of our parenting with Ben is to show him that like by us doing it too, right? To show him, like, you can do this, like you can face whatever it is that comes up in your life. And whether it's within yourself or it's outside of yourself, you can do that. And there are very effective tools that you can use to do it, but like you are totally capable and able to do that. So it's a great, I'm really glad that you asked that question, because it is a really important part of what we do with him and how we support him. And it really challenges us, because as parents, it's like, if you're not doing that, if you're doing something else, or you're simply just not doing that, like, why wouldn't I do that? And it's a real question. It's like, is it because I'm afraid of something, or because I'm resentful about something he said or something, like I'm having some kind of reaction, or I don't like what he's doing, or I find it disgusting or offensive, or whatever the thing is, or dangerous, or like danger was something for me as a kid. My dad was very reactive to situations where we might be in danger, or we were putting ourselves in danger or something like that. So that was a point for me that I really had to look at my fears around that. And so like Ben does something like that, how am I reacting, and how is all of that programming now coming out and influencing him? And if I'm not questioning that stuff, and I'm just reacting, or I'm just like the same things that my dad said are just spilling out of my mouth because I haven't actually paid attention to them, it has a big impact on Ben. So there's a lot of things that we can do as parents to make sure that he really has the best opportunity to handle whatever comes up. If it's fighting with himself over something, or if it's an external challenge or whatever, like he can do it. He can, like, he's prepared and he can do it.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. That, because I don't know, I mean, outside of the group, I don't know many people who are that confident that their kids could really overcome anything and have the tools to do it. I think a lot of people I know outside of the group are always like, well, I hope for the best. I hope I'm doing what's right. I hope that they can, let's say, get a good education and have a good life and, all these things. But doesn't seem to be a, very, what do I want to say? Supreme confidence there, like it's, whereas you're very confident, like, hey, he's going to know how to handle stuff or figure these things out and do it in a good way. And because he has the support, but he also has tools to do it. And we're teaching him and encouraging him now with this. Right. So that's a pretty incredible difference. And
I think, I mean, it's, I don't know what your experience has been like, but in using TechnoTutor and using the self-forgiveness process and just studying this material and this methodology and, like this approach, it's like, there's nothing that I know of that's more effective than this stuff. So like when we talk about the tools, like really specifically, like that's the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And, so there really is an answer. Like somebody's like, my confidence comes from, like, I've done a lot of stuff. Like, as I was saying, like, I have a long history of studying this stuff and like, really researching like different religions and spiritualities and like psychology and philosophy and like all kinds of stuff, like really diving deep into stuff. And I've not found anything as effective. And that doesn't discount all the things that I've done. But like, if somebody's like, yeah, like I hope I can figure it out, or I hope there's a solution, or I hope they can find a way, or I hope my kids really, thrive, or like that. Like, there really are ways that we can set them up. I am totally 100% sure of this, that we can set them up to have the best possible life, the best possible tools, the best possible support. Like, I have no doubt. And like, I recently, so one of the things that Maya and I are doing now is we're distributors for the TechnoTutor technology. And so I'll meet with parents and just people, mostly parents though, and talk to them about what we're doing and what this stuff is. And I sat down with a woman recently, and we were doing a demonstration. I was like kind of demonstrating how the thing works and what it is. And her son sat down with us, and her son is about 8 years old. And at this point, he's not reading yet. He's really just starting learning his letters and things like that.
Wow.
And yeah, so for a lot of people, like that's a really late start for him to be learning this stuff. And for the things that he's learning, he's struggling with how to integrate the letters and like process this stuff, so he really gets it. And I was showing her how this thing works and like how he can do that. And so he sat down with us, and we started going through one of the lists. And I asked him, like, what are you learning now? And so we started with just letters, like the list of letters. And he went through the first 5 that in the program, and he got all of them wrong. And then we went back, and I said, okay, well, part of this is that there's a remediation process. There's an opportunity for you to like learn what you got wrong and correct it. And the program will walk you through that. So we do that, and he goes through the beginner, and then he goes through the practice. And by the time we get to the master section, the master speed of this thing, he's getting all 5 of them, like no problem. He got them.
No.
And he's like, and he turns to me and he's like, I got it. Like, he really got it, like in his bones, got those letters. Like, he knows those letters now. And like, his mom is sitting next to him. She's witnessing that, and she's like, whoa, like he really did get that. And we went back and we looked, and like, he's able to recognize those letters. And he's never going to lose that. So, like at the beginning of that process, he didn't have those integrated. And at the end, he really did. So like, these tools, they work at a level of the subconscious, and they work at the level of knowing. So it's not just like memorization or like figuring something out or decoding something. Like, you're really, it, like in your bones, like riding a bicycle, you got balance. Like, he knows those letters. And it was such a clear example to me of how this stuff works, and that it works. Like, he knows this stuff. And like that, and that's why I say, like, I have total confidence that, like, I have no doubt that this stuff works, because there's examples like that to me where it's like, it's working. And there are so many examples of, like with Ben or with Maya or myself, like people in this community that are like using this stuff, of how effective this stuff can be. And it's like, wow, okay, so like, if we have something like that and people have any doubts, it's like, let's talk about it. Because like, if you're interested in why are we here and what is this life about, and like, what are we going to create together, like, we're all here alive at this moment together. Like, you're alive, I'm alive, we get to have this conversation right now because we're alive. Like, whatever happens next and whatever happened before is whatever that was. But like right now, we are all here globally together, living, you know? So like, what are we actually going to create? And if like you're really serious about that and really curious about that, cool. Like, let's talk about what that means and how are we going to do that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, amazing. And you know, honestly, like you said, there's people in the community who, like, honestly, I think there's people in the community who probably have experienced everything that somebody's going to experience. Like, as dark or as deep as something might be, or just even as insignificant in their own mind that something is, I think somebody in our group has experienced it and has been able to come through those things or address those things. And you know, I mean, some of them I've had the interviews with, right? We can go back and look at some of the chat with cats with some of these people.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you've really been in a hard place, right? But or even if it was just like I'm searching or something's not feeling right, or like, hey, there must be more. Like you're like, there's got to be something more to all this, right? So
Yeah, totally.
yeah, there's definitely results. I was trying to find what word I wanted to use, but definitely results right here for people to share. And you're right. There's so many more, you know, testimonials and people who just use the tools, are not necessarily in the group as much. They just, okay, I think it's a good tool for my family or maybe for my kids, usually for the kids, right? But
Yeah.
that's usually how people find it. But
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's really like I'm really passionate about it. You know, like it's something that like because I really feel like my whole life has been geared towards this. Like really, and really like the way I kind of approach it is that everybody really has that innate interest and innate like desire to like create something that is best. Like, you know, I don't know. So I just kind of like, I take that perspective it's built in. And I really think that like when I don't know, I just, I can't see it another way that it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And
I think with a lot of people too, it's trying to find, like, uncover those layers to find that, right? Where there's a lot of people, I mean, especially in the younger generation, I'm thinking where, you know, sort of my niece's age, around the early 20s, where they're kind of feeling like, what's the point, right? Everything's so messed up. I'm never going to afford a home. Like all these things. Okay, I'll go to school. I'll get a job. I'll make some, but I kind of have this sense that there's like this underline of what's the point, right? And it's really, I guess, being able to uncover these different layers of explain so you can find the point. And so,
totally, yeah. I mean, like, I don't know what your experience was like in, finding this group, or like what your background has been like. You mentioned you've done a whole bunch of landmark stuff, and
not as much as you, but yeah.
But it's but yeah, I mean, it's like, it's really like you're peeling an onion, and like, how deep are you willing to go to get to the center of the Tootsie Roll Pop? It's
I remember those. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest question, though, is like, are you willing to go deep and find it? Because it's not easy, right? And when you start finding yourself, there's probably things in there you're not too happy about either. So it's so much easier to have this front on, and this is what my life is, and have it being very superficial, and I mean, it could be as like going to the movies, or going to like the next vacation, or the next event that you're in your life, but that's what you're living at. It's pretty scary to start going a little bit deeper into things. And
I find that, like, if you really want to like find out how deep somebody is willing to go, ask them a question about money, or ask them a question about sex. You can ask them about death, but people can brush that off because it's like, that's later, you know.
Right.
Or it's
I'm
for the
not dead yet, so
confronted.
I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's not like really in their face, but ask them about sex or ask them about money.
Mm.
And then if they're willing to have a conversation, actually like really go into it,
Yeah.
then, you know, like maybe there's some willingness there, or maybe there's even some ability because they've confronted some stuff already. You know, most people have to some degree, but like, I think you're right, you know, that you're going to find stuff along the way that you're at some point that you're not necessarily either happy or comfortable with,
Yeah.
that you're have to confront.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I know I was one of those people. I did live at a very superficial level for a very, very long time. But I was also trapped and I was trying to please everybody as well. And there's I hate to tell you guys, you can't please everybody because somebody's going to always be upset with you at some point. So at some point, you kind of have to figure out for yourself, going, am I pleasing myself now? Because really, what everybody else's opinion doesn't matter now. So,
Right. Yeah.
you know, but that took me a long time to come to that point too, where it's like, you know, oh, I don't fit into the box. This doesn't, you know, doing these things that they say you should be doing doesn't actually work for me.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. No, I'm not. I'm quite miserable actually. Like when you actually pull it back. So
yeah. And it's like it's kind of like you're like dancing as fast as you can, you know, and you're like just exhausted and you're like, why am I doing this? And you're like, oh, maybe I kind of like part of this. No, that I don't want to think about that, but like, okay, maybe I should stop doing that. And then you stop and you're like, I'm depressed because I'm not doing that thing anymore.
Right.
Now what do I do with myself or whatever? You know, it's like like all these different layers of the things that you're gonna have to deal with. There was a friend of mine who he used to say, you know, we go back to the things that are comfortable, even if they're not good for us, because they're comfortable and we're used to them. And he would say, you know, like, shit stinks, but it's warm.
Jeez. Not a lie either, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So true though. We tend to stick to what's comfortable. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's like a huge, I mean, like right now, like in our world, there's so many distractions, and most of them are driven by being comfortable, or you know, like you know, massaging ourselves or assuaging ourselves with television or whatever thing you might do that I would consider a certain level of addiction, where it's like, well, I'm getting some relief from it. Like I used to come home from my job and I'd watch television or I'd watch a movie, even a movie that I'd watched many times before. And I'd say, you know, like, oh, I need to do this to decompress. But it's like, actually, I'm just distracting myself because all that stuff is going to be there when I'm done. And then I'm just going to need more of that to cover up the stuff that I'm not willing to look at. So it's kind of like at a certain point, you know, how long are we going to distract ourselves before something's going to come up that it's going to hit us? You know, like either it's going to be a breakup or a job loss or a, you know, economic disaster or a health disaster or like whatever the thing is. And it's like, we're not prepared. We've been distracting ourselves for so long. But, you know, if you're willing to like start looking now, then there are tools, you know, that can support you in that process. There's like I find that a lot of this stuff, you know, like if I were to like make this like I don't know, like a really bad analogy of like why I do what I do, because like I'm just like a control freak and I'm terrified of things going awry, and like that's why I'm like making sure that I'm, you know, covering all my bases and being the most prepared and all that kind of stuff. It's like you could look at it like that. I don't think that's what's going on, but you could look at it like that, because is there, you could like go into this process with fear
Mm-hmm.
that like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm going to be as prepared as I possibly can be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, or some time, you know, I'm going to have to pay the piper. So I might as well start preparing now, save up now, you know,
Mm-hmm.
do my exercise now so I can be
Mm-hmm.
prepared for that. And I think there is something valid about that. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be about control.
Right.
But it can be about like the reality of having to face our consequences. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of waiting, face them now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait until you're on your deathbed to face the consequences of your life. Face
Right.
them now, you know, like,
Yeah.
and really create the best life for yourself. Yeah.
When you're going through your journey of this and really using tools and helping yourself forward with it, you're going to change as a person. And the people who've known you probably the longest, like your family or some of your closest friends, they may not like some of the changes. They may not understand some of the changes. And if they're not willing to hear about like what's happening or what you're doing or why these things are important to you now, you know, you may find that those people may not be as relevant in your life anymore. And that's just the unfortunate truth, right? Because if you can't change, and if everybody else is staying the same, expect the same kind of communication and the same kind of relationships either, right? So, you know, so sometimes it's saying, you know, okay, goodbye to some people, or sometimes it means that we're not as close as we once were because you can no longer communicate on that same level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty hard to go back and communicate on that very superficial level, let's say, when now you're evolving more and you're going deeper into things and you're actually dealing with things that maybe you never really paid attention to. So
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, a lot of people in the self-perfected group, we talk about vocabulary a lot. You know, the words that we use, the words that we understand, the words that have been integrated into our system. You know, do we really truly understand their meaning? And I find that like when there is that kind of disconnect that you're describing, like I was describing, you know, like Maya was telling me about responsibility, and she had an idea and a definition of what that was, and I didn't have the same one. So I literally could not understand what she was talking about.
Right.
And it was a real challenge. Like, and I don't know, like if we weren't a couple, if we weren't together, I don't know how invested in sticking with that conversation I would have been. Like even after having that conversation, it was years after that until I came back and she presented it to me again, that I was able to like then start to unravel what she was talking about. And it was a real struggle and challenge for me to do that. And then there was a point where it opened up and I was like, oh, that's what we're talking about. And that's when I really understood what it meant and what she was talking about. But it was like, without that shared understanding of the vocabulary, there's no way that we could have continued in that realm or that conversation. So like, yeah, what you're saying totally makes sense. Like you have a new understanding of something, either the way you work or whatever, even like the relationship with that person, and you could describe it to them. Right. But if they don't get the same understanding, if they don't have the same understanding, it could very well be a real challenge to the point where it's like, yeah, you know what? Like, we're having a really hard time communicating with each other. And, you know, it could be an opportunity where you take responsibility for it and you're like, you know what? Like, no matter what, I'm going to be here and I'm going to continue to communicate as best I can with you until we figure it out. And, you know, like either you can see what I'm talking about or I can understand what you're talking about or whatever. And then we can actually understand each other. And, you know, and there's times when it's like, you know what, like, I don't know that we're actually going to be able to do that and make a call on, you know, like maybe that won't work here, you know, but yeah, I mean, totally. Like you go into this process and you have a new understanding of something or yourself. It can totally change relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not just like, even like if you've got superficial relationships with people, and it's fun. You like it for whatever reason, like, and you want to maintain those, or you want to take them deeper because you discovered something or whatever. It's like, yeah, it could totally blow up the relationship because they're like, that's not what I'm in here for. Like I was here for going out drinking and, like gossiping about people. And, you're like, oh, okay, well, what about this thing? And they're like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's really interesting because I thought maybe it was just like age. I was like, yeah, I just don't have that interest to go out and party and do the stuff and all. Like once in a while I'll go out and have, a drink or two or something. But really, I'm not going, oh, I need to drink it, And I thought maybe this is an age thing. And then I started realizing, like, no, you know what? I'm actually a much better person now than I was before. And I'm not trying to like hide something or drown something or like not face something anymore. And so it just doesn't even interest me as much. I mean, like I said, I drink now and then, sure. A glass of really good wine now and then, sure. But I mean, during COVID, to be honest, I was having a drink at least every night, right? At least one drink. I mean, here I was all alone. My cat of 19 years had just passed away right before COVID had started. So I had like zero companionship. And I wasn't thinking along the same way as some of the other people, right? So needless to say, I was ousted from some groups. And then we went into lockdowns quite severely in Canada, right? So it's like, I mean, I literally had friends who would sneak me over for a weekend to their house. And I mean, yeah, part of our relationship wasn't based on drinking, but one aspect of our relationship was that when we weren't doing, our motorcycles and the things that were responsibilities we had with the group, we would let loose and just drink, right? So, but then we would get into these deep philosophical conversations too. So, I mean, some of us would, right? But here it was like, but they would sneak me into their home for the weekend during like severe COVID lockdowns, and like we would, eat and drink and talk and spend the whole night doing that. And like, and then I moved to Mexico. People were like, "Well, you live in Mexico, you must be drinking margaritas all the time or having beers." And I'm like, no, actually, not. I just I don't have an interest in doing that all the time anymore. I don't. But I've done a lot more deep process work through since I moved here than before too. I mean, I was using the tools, but not on a deep level. So, that's changed too. But yeah, it's just interesting. You just go, it doesn't really interest me anymore. So
I'm really grateful to Mitch for having created this, the opportunity for all of us to get together, just even on a call like this, where we can see each other's faces and we can talk about something for an hour, deep dive into something. And I love that, like it's having a relationship with people. Hey, Ben.
You want tea?
Sure. Yeah, I'll have tea.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll mix it for you.
But yeah, I mean, just, being able to connect like that. And again, it's people from all over the world. So, you're in Mexico and there's people in Germany and Belgium and Canada and Africa and, and it's awesome. And I love like the origin of it was, Mitch was invited to go drinking with some friends on a Friday night. And he's like, I don't really want to do that. I mean, hang out with you guys, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to start something. I'm going to start a group, and everybody who wants to talk about this kind of deep stuff, like, let's hang out. Let's talk about that stuff together, and I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah. And now it's evolved into a self-perfected group. So we do this every Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I love it. So, wow. I know we can probably talk all night long. And but I do want to also respect that you have your family and want to spend some time with them as well. So I'm just and I ask everyone this. If you were to go back to your 10-year-old self, what advice would you give them?
That's funny. It's a good question. Man, how would I communicate to me as a 10-year-old? I don't know. Like, I'd actually want to get to know me a little bit. Like, what was I actually thinking at that time? I would ask a bunch of questions first, like, because I don't feel like I can actually remember what I was like at 10 years old. But I don't think that there'd be like magical advice that would help me that much, honestly. Like, whether it would be like, go find the self-perfected group, or, you're gonna, if I was gonna walk the same path and yet like somehow intervene at 10 years old, I'd say, well, you're gonna be on a wild ride, you're gonna learn a lot about yourself. So enjoy it, and know that you are capable of all the things that you want to create in this world. You can do it. It's just, how willing are you to do whatever it takes to make it happen? And it's really, I think it wouldn't be like so much advice as it would be a challenge, as to say, like, you might have an idea of what you want to create in your life, and that's not wrong. But maybe think even bigger than that. And all the things that you may limit yourself from being able to create, you can do that too. So like, how far are you willing to go? Something like that. Because I'm pretty competitive. So I think I probably would have like taken that on. Like, oh, really? All right, buddy. What you created. Let's see if I can beat that.
I love that. How far do you want to go, and how far you're willing to take it? Wow. I think all of us should take that on right now and really go sit with that one.
Yeah.
Man, that's great.
Like, you can just like imagine like your future self from now coming back, and just like take on the competitive thing, like just take it on. Like, all right, like, what do you got? This is what you did? All right. Well, check me out.
Oh, fantastic. Let's do it. Okay. I'm seriously going to sit down and write those things out after. And like,
awesome.
Okay,
yeah, that's great.
How far are you really going to go? Yeah. Oh, man. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Yeah. This is so cool that you're doing this. And I know that you've had an opportunity to sit down with a lot of people in the group and people outside of the group and stuff. And I just think it's great that you're very consistent about it. And, that you take the time, like, we've been together, for about an hour and a half or so. And I just think it's great. Like, you're taking to get to know people and to allow other people to get to know them. And, you're asking great questions. And I know, like, I've gone on and on about stuff, but like, I appreciate that you're doing this. I think it's great.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's my absolute pleasure. And honestly, I'm probably getting as much out of this as everybody else is. I did not start it for anything to do with me, honestly. I started this really just because I kept hearing people sharing stories around me, right? Like something that changed their life and or something that they overcame or something that they learned. And I was just like, man, there's so much good stuff here that we just need to share. Like, people just need to know this now, even without, like, inside and outside of the community, right? And it just felt like at the time that there's just so much like doom and gloom going on in what was being communicated in the world right now. It's like, man, people just need to hear some of this stuff. And that's really like what got me started with this. I just wanted to sort of share some people's stories, honestly. So
yeah, that's very cool. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that too. I appreciate that. But as we wrap up, and I'm going to let you go because I know Ben's making you some tea, so you can go and enjoy with the family. But is there any last words of advice or any last thoughts that you want to share with us right now?
No, I mean, I'd say that if somebody has listened this far through and they're still interested, come and find our group. come and find the Self-Perfected group. Like if you're asking the kinds of questions that we've been talking about, come and find us, because like there's no better group that's chasing the answers and or hasn't found them. So come and find us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, thank you so much, Keith, for joining me here and sharing tonight and just being so open. I truly appreciate it. And I know some people are going to listen to this and are really going to get some gold out of this. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll see you soon. I'll probably on the next Self-Perfected or another time. I'll see you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
See you later.
Bye.